Sauce, Miss Tony, and Rockstone Trills.
Didn't I sound just like it?
I thought that was it. I didn't even know it wasn't you.
That was me. That was all me. That was me.
You did that, girl. That sounds like a belt.
I like that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is Thursday. We are almost there. Wow, those are nice puppies. We are almost there. We're at the finish line of the week. We got Friday left to go, and Friday is usually a good week because that's when most of y'all don't do no work like y'all supposed to do. Everybody low key take Friday off, casual Friday it up like you got that advice from somebody. Y'all want to go to the work and do the people's job. That's what y'all got to do. Word. That's what they said. Yeah. But we are here. It is Thursday. It is Thirsty Thursday. Mike Nice hasn't given us the theme of the day yet. He is still. I value Mike Nice for continuing on the tradition of making sure that we have the theme of the day. He still puts that in the chat room when he jumps in there. So if you guys are watching right now, if you guys are tuning in, go ahead and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that we are live here, Saucy and Friends, every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 on Spark FM Online. Hot Sauce, Miss Tony Be Knowing, and Rockstone Triz.
That's me.
Yes.
I almost took it from him.
Yeah, that's you.
And then I had to stop. I didn't want to take his moments. Steal his moments.
So we're going to do a quick check-in. Miss Tony, how you doing?
I am doing good. I am happy to tell you all that I have a clean bill of health in my boobies.
Oh, good.
I had a mammogram yesterday.
Mammogram.
I had my 6-month follow-up from my little scare.
I don't know if we did this last time, but explain to me the actual process of said mammogram.
I was talking about you yesterday to my mammography tech.
Did you tell her that when she gets me to be easy?
I did. So I said, my sister asked me about the mammograms and how mammograms go. And I told my sister that it's easy for me because I'm well endowed. So, it's not a thing for me. So anyhow, it's pretty easy. You just kind of go there. They kind of, finagle and move things around for you themselves. You don't really have to do much. But anyways, 6 months ago, I had a little scare because they found some things. I had to have a biopsy, all of this thing. But anyways, I have a clean bill of health. I don't have to go back for another year. I don't have to do 6-month checkups anymore.
Good.
Everything is looking good. So I feel good. And then I went and hung out, did some things yesterday.
Just want to congratulate you and your boobies on a job well done.
My boobs, thank you.
Yes.
And look at my shirt says big on self-love across my boobies.
Good.
Life is good. I'm happy. I'm in a great mood. I've been in a great mood. I've started my days with prayer. I've ended my days with good prayer. I've been having long talks with God, and He has promised that something great is in store for me, and I am open to receiving it. So that is that. I hope you guys are doing well.
Amen.
I like that. What about you, Rockstone Triz? How you doing, brother?
I'm blessed be thy neighbor.
Wow. Blessed be thy neighbor.
Oh, hallelujah.
We're just having church in here on a Thursday. Okay.
I'm good. I'm chilling, I've been organizing music past when it's time to organize music, it's a never ending situation. You can be there for hours.
See, that's me too. When I'm trying to organize my crates and my different things as such.
You still got crates.
I know one word. I know one DJ word, and that's what I'm gonna organize all the time.
One piece of terminology.
I gotta get them in my different eras and my BPMs, and I gotta, it's new ones. It's man. I tell you, it takes me a while to organize mine.
Girl, I cannot identify. However, I understand.
Hey, what about you, Sauce? How was your evening?
My evening was nice. Yesterday we finalized some plans for the new studio.
Oh my gosh, that was so exciting.
Yeah. Where did you go, Tristan?
Yeah. Huh?
Where did you go after the first time we got cut off?
I know, because we got kicked out 2 more times and we kept coming right back. You just never came back.
Yeah.
I thought the meeting done.
No. You
didn't say bye.
She even texted you to see where you was at. and you still never
I
came back.
I came at the end towards the end of the meeting.
Okay.
I was driving from Framingham. My uncle made me
He's on an adventure.
On an adventure. I had breakfast yesterday at Newcombs. After that, my uncle called me talking about, okay, can you give me the Framingham and I'll pick up some blah, 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 blah. So I had to go.
Who's this? Our good friend Leo.
Yes. And it's always an adventure. It's like riding with DMX in the car.
Yes,
like,
I can see that. I can see that.
Like riding with DMX. It's like, oh boy, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Good Lord. Uncle, what you saying? Where you want me to go? Yeah. So we did, that was like that was the highlight of my evening. It was just meeting after meeting after meeting. I did get a really good call that we've been waiting for a while. So, I have unclenched myself a little bit so that I can breathe a little bit more. But one thing I have learned in the process of entrepreneurship is that you can have whatever plans you want to have. Those plans are going to happen when they happen. You cannot predict that. You can plan as much. You can strategize all the things. And most of the times they will go, in the order in which you want them. But other times, like the waiting game is what I think takes people out of entrepreneurship. Yeah, like the pressure of waiting, the stress of waiting for something that you know is coming, but it hasn't come yet. So you just kind of have to sit down and just look around like, maybe it's today. Maybe it's today.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all know, but her being my sister, like I feel stressed from her. And so I'm like, oh God.
I think that you guys have all taken on that though, because Tristan be in his mood too.
No, you're right, Tristan. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take that away from you two. We do be like, oh God, what is she gonna be like today?
Gary called me. He's like, what you doing? Just breathing.
No, we call you and sit on the phone for a little while and see how she's gonna answer the phone.
Do you know what the? But yes, we have. It is. As you build, you learn many things. Today, we're going to learn a lot. We have an historian, a journalist, legacy, all kinds of Boston in the building today. We will be talking to Dart Adams a little bit later into the show after our Around the Way news. And we're going to talk about a little bit of history of Boston, journalism, media, rap, hip hop. Sports, racism, all kinds of things. This man is involved in a lot of different things. And we're going to tap in. We like to tap in with the experts. And we have them sit down when we don't know everything. We want to get the full story from everybody so that you guys are better, well-rounded when you have your Facebook and social media conversations. So you're not out here sounding crazy. You can say a little factoid. Yeah. With that said, let's speed it up and let's get into the Around the Way news. Saucy and Friends in the Morning officially starts right now. Let's go.
You're listening to Saucy and Friends in the Morning with Miss Hot Sauce, Miss Tony, and Rockstone Triz.
The only thing that does matter is great music, and you will find it here.
The all-new Spark FM. The all-new Spark FM. Log on to sparkfmonline.com. Call Spark FM at 617-272-3387.
Because we're talking about Black history, and it is Black History Month, we're going to kick it off with our Black History fact, just so that we can keep it in the spirit. So today we're going to be talking about Claudette Colvin, and most of you guys don't know Claudette Colvin because you only know Rosa Parks. You only know Rosa Parks because you didn't do your history. Prior to Rosa Parks was a lady named Claudette Colvin. She was born in September 5th, 1939. She in Birmingham, Alabama. She's an American teenager who was arrested in 1955 for refusing to give up her bus seat to a white person. Her protest was one of several by Black women challenging segregation on buses in the months before Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat. Parks' action, however, is more well known, and that was between 1955 and 56 with the Montgomery bus boycott. That y'all don't know how to boycott nothing nowadays. Back in the days when these people was boycotting, they didn't even have the things that we had, and they was willing to give it up for the main cause. Nowadays, we can't even get y'all to stop watching a little Netflix when Monique say that she's not getting paid, but when Taraji P. Henson says it, this right there, that's Sister Claudette and Rosa Parks right now. You know, that's them right now. So on March 2nd, 1955, when Colvin was 15 years old, she was riding a bus in Montgomery when the driver asked her to give up her seat to a white person. Colvin refused, saying that she had paid her fair share and had a constitutional right to sit there. Her actions, however, went against the segregation laws of Montgomery, and 2 police officers dragged Colvin off the bus, put her in handcuffs, and took her to jail. In court, she pleaded not guilty to the 3 charges against her: disturbing the peace, violating the city segregation laws, and assaulting the police officers. She was convicted on all 3 and was sentenced to indefinite probation and declared a ward of the state. She appealed and 2 charges were dropped, but the assault charge was upheld because, you know, they can't let us off for nothing. Right. Tristan is playing a little video of her in the background right here. Let's hear a little bit of it, Tristan.
That a white person had to sit in front of you and you sit behind them. And so the bus driver asked me to get up. I was shouting, "It's my constitutional right, so I'm not going to move." And that's when the policeman dragged me off the bus. Most people ask me, "Weren't you afraid?" Well, I was a teenager. I was afraid, but I was more angry at these white pensioners. And then they took me and booked me. I still vividly can hear the sound of the key go. I was terrified, and I started reciting that it will be done in earth as it is in heaven. And I was just praying for help, praying that they would go and let my parents know that I was in jail.
And that's another thing right there.
Is she's still alive now?
I'm not sure.
She is?
I'm not sure. This was in 2016. This video.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I heard some recent stuff. She's been trending in the last couple of days too. Like a lot of Black History reports have been about her in the last couple of days, because it is, I made that comparison earlier, and we'll get into that later in the entertainment report about Monique's explosive podcast on Club Shay Shay as well. And it's pretty much talking about that, someone, and Monique wasn't the first either, but when somebody else gets more notoriety for something that you help to, I guess, say or pave the way. Yeah, we want to make sure that we are touching base with all of those people that pioneered these big causes that have helped Black people. With that said, today is Thursday, February 8th. It's approximately 9:21. And today is going to be sunny, high near 45 degrees, winds light and variable. It's been cold, but it's been very little pockets of nice weather.
Because the sun's been out. Yeah. And when the sun is out, everything feels good.
You feel good. Yeah.
It's supposed to get real nice today.
Oh, good. Oh, really? 45 is not bad. No. 45 is not bad. I might wear a little slipper.
She's still alive. Shout outs Uncle Grandpa on the check-in.
Thank you, Uncle Grandpa.
She's still alive.
She is still alive. I'm going to find her. So let's get into the around the way news. Big breaking story out of Boston right now. It is stressing me out and it's making me angry because you had one job. Right. The man accused of killing his girlfriend in Massachusetts escapes from police custody in Kenya. This is the story of the young woman who was found in the airport parking lot, and then the alleged killer ran away to Kenya. They did a big manhunt to find him, found him. I don't know what happened, how he didn't get found. Who did that? Not El Chapo. It was El Chapo. And this last person too. Bulgy.
Griselda Blanco.
Yes, no, she didn't escape from prison, but Anyhow, a man awaiting extradition on a Massachusetts warrant allegedly he killed his girlfriend and left her body in a car at the Boston airport escaped from police custody in Kenya. Kevin Adams said that the man slipped out of the police station and jumped into one of the privately owned minivans that are in the main transportation source in Kenya. Police Chief Anderson Bonji said a fresh search for him began immediately. The police chief said that he rushed to the station when he learned of the escape. We have arrested the officers who were on duty when he escaped to explain how it happened. It's just embarrassing to us, as it should. It should be embarrassing. Here goes Todd, going to tell us all about it.
Calls this embarrassing for his force. He says the officers who were on duty at the time when this escape happened have all been arrested as part of the investigation that is now underway.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
The suspect in this case, Kevin Kingathe, is charged with stabbing Maggie Mbutu back in November. The 31-year-old nurse was last seen leaving work on October 30th. Massachusetts State Police say Kingathe left her body in a car at Logan's Central Parking Garage and boarded a flight to Kenya. Kenyan authorities say Kingathe slipped out of the police station sometime yesterday and got away in a privately owned minivan. The police chief says a new search is now underway for the 40-year-old. He was arrested just last week at a nightclub and was awaiting extradition back here to Massachusetts. Kingathe's escape is raising new questions now as to whether bribes were played a role in this case. Reporting live this morning in Whitman, Todd Keskevich, WCVB News Center 5.
They're going to have to make a movie out of this.
It says here that police have been ranked as Kenya's most corrupt institution for decades, and it's escape raised suspicion that bribes. So, because this is what I need to understand. This is how I need to understand it. He got out of the jail and he ran to a private car. He stole the car, or somebody was driving and it's a getaway car?
Well, they said it's one of these minivans. It's like a maxi taxi.
Yeah.
So he ran and got into one of the maxi taxis and they drove off. I don't understand. Right.
It had to be a getaway driver, because a maxi taxi man at the jail who somebody just jumps in my car, I shouldn't be that excitable to take him where he needs to go. Mm-hmm. So what's the license plate on the, how are we going to find him?
Right. Well, that's what they're saying. They're checking to see if bribes played a part. If the police, that's very surprising. The police have been arrested.
Good.
They don't do that here.
They don't. We don't know about that here in America.
Right. That needs to be done here.
Very interesting. But yes, like this family now, like that is also traumatic to the family too. Yeah. Like we finally found this guy. We're excited. It's in the news. They're going to bring him to America. How long from the time that he was found to the time that he escaped? What was the process of getting him back here so that he could stand trial for his business?
These are the questions that I have.
I'm interested in knowing. We're going to have to ask Mr. Cox to come over here and talk to us about how extradition works, because I need to know.
Yeah.
Mother Nature creates dazzling display with pink, purple sand. Where's this at? At Revere Beach.
I'm going to go there.
That looks nice. You sure that's not blood? A strange phenomenon is unfolding on Revere Beach, where the sand's otherworldly look has a very earthy explanation. The sand at Revere Beach now appears pink and purple from the air, and no, it's not a prank in time for Valentine's Day. Experts think the color came from far north as Mount Washington, where minerals washed downstream after rain and snow caused flooding. So it took a lot more stream flow to move those minerals. The minerals are most likely rose quartz and garnet, pink and dark red stones that mix in with sand's usual makeup. All of the spiritual girls is going to be at Revere Beach, and they are going to bring in the new moon.
They are.
Because with some crystal rose quartz and stuff like that, that sounds like chakras alignment to me.
I don't want everybody to go down there, because y'all gonna evoke some portal and open it up and something's gonna happen. I'm not in the mood for that.
Garnets are a really hard mineral. It's one of the hardest out here, and they're heavy. So that's why we're seeing it now with all the recent flooding. But now, if anything, it's just a sign that we haven't had this type of flooding in a long time. Oh, that just seems like, the new moon is upon us, guys, and Mercury is in retrospective, and we are outside. We are outside. Suspect in high-end brothel network released pending trial. You said it earlier. I am absolutely tired of hearing about the brothel.
I'm over this brothel situation.
A man accused of helping to operate a high-end brothel in the Boston area was released Tuesday as he awaits charges stemming from the federal investigation. The suspect, one of 3 charged in connection with the brothel network in Cambridge and Watertown, walked out of federal court in Worcester and declined to answer questions about the case. He was ordered to submit a location monitoring. His attorney, John Amiable, told 7 News that the judge made the correct decision in releasing my client and stressed his client has no criminal record and is not a flight risk. Does he just go stop and open another brothel after all of this is done? And I can see why. It's a high selling business.
I mean, what's the difference between this brothel and the chicken ranch that's going to offer all the NFL players all the sex?
In Nevada, sexism is not sexual fun is legal.
Oh,
here it's not legal. So Nevada, they can
imagine a place where sexual fun is not legal.
Exactly. That's what I don't understand. If it's legal in Nevada, why can't it just be legal here?
Right.
You want to go to the store?
Legalize it.
I mean, he ain't gonna say nothing. He say he ain't got nothing to say. And this story is pretty much a dud, anyways, because I'm not sure why we're still talking about these men who paid for sex.
Right.
Men pay for sex. A-day-B. 3 juveniles charged in breaking that Framingham vape shop. Did you, first of all, before we get into this, have you guys been seeing the viral video of the little boy that broke into the Apple store and took all of the phones and everything off of the Apple things, put them all in his pants and ran across the street to a getaway car, which happened to be the police car?
What is that?
It's a viral video that's going on and it reminds me of these little kids that are breaking into these vape shops. So 2 girls and a boy have been charged in connection with the recent break-ins at vape shops in Framingham. Officers investigating 2 entering incidents at 2 vape smoke shops in Framingham in December learned that a travel group of juveniles were breaking into various vape shops in the Northeast and was able to bring the charges through intelligence sharing with multiple agencies. The juveniles' names were not released because of their age, and they're most likely to have a permanent record for doing dumb shit like breaking into a vape shop. What you gonna do?
They arrested them, so they caught them.
Yes, they caught them.
It's stupid. The kids are so dumb.
Kids are bored.
Can you go? Speaking of kids being bored and dumb, can you go straight to that story about the middle schoolers?
In other teenage stories and other teenage
stories, up to 100.
Okay, in other teenage stories of children behaving badly, here we go. Right here. Up to 100 middle schoolers have been running amok in mass supermarket. Here's how the principal responded. The students' behavior included building forts out of paper towels, riding in carriages and electric carts, knocking over displays, and even stealing merchandise, the school principal said. A middle school in Medway. Where is Medway? In Franklin?
Over there.
North, south, west. It's somewhere where the migrants are not. Middle school in Medway is turning to parents for help amid a troubling trend. Students flocking to a nearby supermarket to build paper towel forts, knock over displays, and generally wreak havoc on early dismissal days. Over the weekend, I was contacted by the director of Shaw's Market, who shared alarming information regarding a troubling trend among our middle school students who visit Shaw's on half days. According to Louise, around 100 students have been visiting the supermarket on half days, and it was reported that a growing number of students are engaging in disruptive behavior. This includes building forts out of paper towers, riding in carriages and electric carts, knocking over displays, and even stealing merchandise. Their actions pose a risk to the students involved and customers of Shaw's. They also reflect poorly on our school community. I'm not going to read the rest of this article because we can just talk about this. At a half a day, you don't want to know where your children's at?
I don't understand. And how many times has this happened?
They said
it's happened more than once.
More than once. I'm not understanding how over 100 kids, that means that they're connected to over 100 parents or caretakers, do not give a damn where your child is on a half day. I knew that on a half day, I had maybe 2 more hours to get home than I regularly do. Yeah. So I was making sure that I was home on time and that I wasn't getting in trouble, that somebody could call my mama and tell her that I was out not being where I was supposed to be, which was in the house.
This is
what is going on?
I don't understand. And this is what happened when they took away parents' ability to discipline their kids the way that they need to.
Talk about
Not that these parents in Medway might have done what we would do. This would never go down at Shaw's on River Street. So like I just really don't understand. I think it's just wild. These kids out here are wild. They are unhinged, and somebody needs to reel them in. So what did the principal do? Because it says here's what the principal did.
Caller, you're live, and I'll get into it right after.
I'm sorry. I just want to say I blame the government for this. These kids are acting crazy because they don't know what it is to get their ass whooped.
Hello. Say that. It's true.
But what's then is not now. They need beatings. They need to get their hands put on them.
They do. Like, when you don't listen, you got to feel. This is what we grew up hearing.
They said,
I just want to say the
spared a rod, spoiled a child.
Exactly.
It's in the
I
Bible.
just want to say the government put the power in the children and took it away from them. And that's why these kids don't have no self-control or discipline anymore.
You are right. And this is why we have to send them to places like ADSL for winter break so that they can
for
get
educational enrichment.
And and Coach Chris can rough them up a little bit.
That's what I like. Bye, Chris. Yeah, so I understand. What did he do?
Well, the principal said that he asked families to speak with their children about importance of respectful behavior.
That's very
and the potential consequences they should face should this behavior continue. I think that what he should have done as a principal is gather all them children together, everybody. It doesn't matter if you did it or if you didn't do it. You had friends who did it. You're guilty by association. You take them, bring them to Boston, and make them go work down Mass and Cass.
Oh, wow.
That's what you need to do.
You tough on crime.
Yeah, keep up with your foolishness, and this is where you're going to end up. That's what I tell Noah every time we used to pass by Mass and Cass. You see all of them? Them is people who didn't listen to their mommies and daddies when they was growing up. And look what they live on the street now. Look at that one standing up, sleeping, falling over. You're going to end up like that if you don't listen. And that's what they need to do with these kids. They need a dose of reality. What happened to Scared Straight?
See, no. Let's be honest. That's a great question. What did happen is but it's probably too emotional and too traumatizing, and then the kids won't be able to
PTSD.
Yeah, and they
saw a bunch of children out here.
A group of 100 students from Northeastern did a survey, and they found out that Scared Straight is scaring the children too straight, and now they're not allowed to come out the closet. All kinds of things like that.
It's taking away their ability to act as children and live children lives and have experiences.
Those are the things. Those are the things that we deal with when you try to ask for discipline in America.
Weak sauce these days. Terrible.
Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey nominates former romantic partner to state's highest court.
I bet she is. I'm not feeling her.
I feel like that can't happen, right? I don't think that you can get that.
Isn't that nepotism?
Yeah, that's a little nepotism.
I think that can happen.
It can. Well, Governor Maura Healey on Wednesday nominated Massachusetts Appeals Court Associate Justice Gabrielle Huluhojian for her former romantic partner of several years to serve on the state's highest court.
It's a man.
Gabrielle has been on the appeals court since 2008, hearing over 2,700 appeals and authoring more than 900 decisions. There is no one more qualified or better prepared to serve on the Supreme Judicial Court than Justice Gabrielle. Healey said in a statement that did not mention their previous relationship, she has an exceptional understanding of the law and a strong commitment to the administration of justice. The reaction has been one of overwhelming support, said Healey. Justice Gabrielle is widely respected by her peers. Healey added, retired SJC Justice Geraldine Hines said in a statement that Gabrielle is uniquely qualified to join the Supreme Judicial Court at a time when it enjoys and is committed to maintaining its reputation as one of the most respected state Supreme Courts in the country.
Huluhojian.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. White people gonna white people anyway, so it don't really matter to us what's gonna happen.
White people gonna white people. I'm not feeling Maura Healey these days.
Why not?
I'm just kind of upset with her.
Talk to us about it.
I did
speak up. Use your big girl voice in the microphone.
I just feel like she just, she's not. I don't want to hear about her.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess there's obviously going to be a lot of controversy around this
Yes.
about whether it is, I wouldn't say ethical because she ain't with her no more. So it's not like she's necessarily doing her a favor.
Yeah, but she's her partner for years.
Yeah. But she is also very qualified. So I wouldn't want to be disqualified for a position that I'm qualified for just because I used to have relations with somebody.
I think she should be nominated, but she should not be widely notoriously nominated by Maura Healey, who is her former partner.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe they should do a little bit more of a separation so it doesn't muddy her reputation and her quality of education.
Right.
So,
especially in light of the current temperature in Massachusetts with everything going wrong. I don't know why Claudine Gay popped into my head with this thing, but I don't feel like that. Like, you can't nominate somebody when we have people going after Claudine Gay for just doing her job. Like, for some reason, I don't know about that. But,
yeah. I get it.
How does that relate? You know what I'm saying?
I know. Like, I guess what you mean is that who else is qualified?
Right.
Maybe so.
Like, we have people who are highly qualified for a lot of things who are coming under backlash for stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So and
then even in this too, like it could work in that same respect can be given to her too. Like, I'm coming out of water because I used to date the governor, but I am very highly qualified to do this job.
Yes.
But it does leave, room to wonder who else is qualified for this job that might not have had the leverage that she has with being the governor's ex-romantic partner.
This is why you I feel you is sisters, because you understand what I'm saying.
I feel you.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, there was a unlicensed motorcyclist colliding with the MBTA trolley while using his phone in Boston.
That's so much.
Was it a dirt biker? Probably.
They said motorcyclist though.
Chaos struck the 700 block of Commonwealth Avenue when a 24-year-old on a 150cc motorcycle collided with the MBTA trolley. Boston's Transit Police reported the incident, which took place at around 6 p.m. yesterday, was caused as the unnamed young rider was looking at his phone, seemingly oblivious to the looming steel behemoth of a public transport that was coming close to his way. In a breathtaking display of negligence, it was discovered that the operator was not only driving without a license, but had also attached an unknown license plate to the motorcycle. And what could easily have turned into a tragedy, fortune seemed to slightly favor Bostonians yesterday, as there was no injuries reported in the crash. The impudent motorcyclist, however, could not too swiftly escaped the consequences of his action. He was promptly dealt with by the authorities for the series of traffic violations. Information regarding the incident was shared by the MBTA Transit Police on their X account. And you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Not only you were probably on a stolen bike, but you stole a license plate, and then you disregarded the train that was coming towards you.
There was so much going on in that headline.
Like, how do you not see it? Yeah. But even if you on the phone, you don't hear it. Even the trolley man didn't put a pump on it or nothing like that. Nothing alerted this guy that imminent death was approaching. And every time somebody gets hit by a train, I always wonder that same thing. Did you not see it? It's kind of big. It's kind of big. But I don't know what to say to y'all. But, I mean, just be careful. Like, even on Google Maps and MapQuest, they always tell you where there's a railroad crossing, everything like that. It just seems that there's so many indication that something large is coming at me that I should, be more aware.
I just honestly don't understand how you can use the phone while you're on a motorcycle, though. That, to me, like, actually riding down the street on the motorcycle.
It's more of a scooter.
More of a scooter. Oh,
it's a scooter. It's one of them stolen dirt bikes that these little people be driving about all the time.
Yesterday, as I picked up Noah from school, there was a young man on a scooter. This is talent. These children are talented. Mm-hmm. He did a wheelie kneeling on the seat of the scooter from the corner of Morton and Norfolk all the way to Morton and Blue Hill.
Oh, wow.
I said, wow, look at that.
It's talent out there.
Talent. He needs to be in the Cirque du Soleil.
Those are the ones that I feel that need that bike park that Boston is always talking about having or something like that. Because there is some talent out here on these bikes. There's the jackasses and then there's talent, right? Yeah. And I think that we do need to make sure that we're talking about the general landscape of dirt bikes and motorcyclists and stuff like that. that we're able to distinguish who from who.
Yes.
You know, so that's that.
Agreed.
We are going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back in a few moments, and we'll be talking to our very own Dart Adams, who calls himself the face of Boston because he is a Bostonian through and through. So keep it locked right here, Spark FM Online, #1 for urban and Caribbean music.
You're listening to Saucy and Friends in the morning with Miss Hot Sauce, Miss Tony, and Rockstone Triz.
What is this, Doctor?
This is
The Spark of New England, Spark FM. Bringing the heat back to the airwaves. Turn us up.
all right. Let's take a look.
Did you get a call or message that mentioned Social Security that made you feel threatened or scared? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, press you for personal information, or demand instant payment. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Don't fall for it. Hang up, ignore them. Report this criminal activity to oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. Tax.
Boston, get ready. Spark FM and Chevalier Theater brings to you reggae superstar Luciano Live. That's February 14th at Chevalier Theater, 31st Street, Medford, Mass. Performing hits like this.
It was a Friday night, a night like this, when I laid upon my bed.
Performing all your favorite hits. Luciano Live.
Just as I had a lip sync down to teach you about
With a special Bob Marley birthday tribute. Reggae superstar Luciano Live. Enjoy a night of authentic reggae music. Doors open at 8 p.m. Get your tickets now at www.chevaliertheater.com. That's February 14th. Luciano Live in the Chevalier Theater. That's 31st Street, Medford, Mass.
so that I be overcome obstacles in my way.
Hello, I'm Marissa Jarrett Winoker. Performing on stage takes mental and physical preparation. But one thing I never thought to prepare for was cervical cancer. 91% of cervical cancers are caused by the human papillomavirus, or HPV. 1 in every 4 Americans is infected with HPV. For many people, the virus hides inside them and they never develop symptoms. But for others, HPV links directly to cancer. My cancer almost ended my career. It almost ended me. The good news is, there are vaccines that can protect you or your children from cancer. The HPV vaccine is recommended for children 11 to 12 years old, and a catch-up vaccine may be an option for teens and young adults. Talk to your doctor. You don't want HPV hiding inside of you. Go to thinkaboutthelink.org to learn more. Together, we can stop cancer before it starts.
Spark FM.
I know you nasty. She be touching on her own body.
Igniting the airwaves. Spark FM.
Says she wanna take me away. Says she wanna take me away. Says she wanna show me the way.
Join us on Facebook and Instagram at sparkfmonline.com. Turn us up. Spark FM. Boston, get ready. Spark FM and Chevalier Theater brings to you
And we are back. Spark FM Online, #1 for urban and Caribbean music. We are back. And as you guys know, there are times where we bring in the muscle. And this is the people that know more than what we know. And we like to get a full account of who we have in here. So we would like you guys to welcome to the stage. We have our own Dart Adams, journalist, a historian, hip hop guru, Boston knower of a lot of many different things. Welcome, Dart Adams. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me.
thank you for coming and speaking with us. We've been seeing you making your ways around the internet lately, and really excited to just bring the conversation to our audience here at Spark FM. So again, welcome, and tell us a little bit about who you are.
All right, so again, Dart Adams, born and raised in South End, Lower Roxbury. Grew up in a part of Boston that was just flush with Black and Latino culture. And as I got older, I realized that very few people outside of New England even had any inkling that Black folks existed and had such a long history.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it my mission to try to tell some of these stories because I heard them my whole life and I couldn't imagine that they never escaped Massachusetts.
You said something just now, and I was paying attention to this. It's still people still doing it now.
Yeah.
It's 2024.
Yeah.
It's 2024, and people are still asking the question of, is there Black people in Boston? And I get insulted all the time. I know that I'm not supposed to because I've been hearing it all my life, but I do feel some type of way when people are asking if there are Black people in Boston, and they be really actually dead ass serious,
Yes.
wanting to know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I arrived at Morgan State University in 1996, and I pretty much had to explain to everybody that Black folks have been in Boston since the 1630s. And without Black people in Boston, and especially Black people in the colonies early on, a lot of the first that ever happened in the United States of America in terms of Black folks happened in Boston or Massachusetts. And without our contributions, nothing moves, nothing shakes. And so I was constantly having to tell people the story of Black Boston or Latino Boston, and it just frustrated me to no end. And pretty much I ended up with my mission in life.
Yeah.
You talk about Latino Boston. You share something very special with us all sitting at the table. You are rooted in Honduras.
Well, yeah. My father's side is from Honduras, and my mom came in the Great Migration from Montgomery County, Alabama. And it's funny because I have cousins that have a mother from Alabama and a father from Honduras too. So we it's this unique thing.
Yeah.
It's for us.
You called it the Black-tino experience.
Yes, the Black
So we're
experience.
almost the same way. We have our fathers, and me and her are sisters. This is our god brother. Our fathers are Trinidadian, and our mothers are Honduran. So, being raised in many, like I like to call it, why we started Spark FM, is that we are fusion cultures between, I grew up in Dorchester, halfway Roxbury line, went to school in Belmont because of Metco, and then was raised by West Indian culture and Latin heritage from both our parents. So it's a hodgepodge it's a melting pot that sits here in this room right now, and I think it's really, really
one of the big things too is that people hear that story in New York, then they do Boston, but I always felt that it was a very unique Bostonian experience.
Me too, yeah.
In terms of like a mix of the Caribbean and the Latino and just like Black folks that came from the Great Migration, and we all created this unique culture in Boston.
Yeah.
And it's existed forever.
Yeah.
It's a reason why like Garveyites, the UNIA, had a base here in Massachusetts. And when Malcolm X was released from prison, it was he was sent directives, go to Boston to recruit.
Yeah, see, we don't like a lot of people would never even know that. They think that Boston is, Boston Tea Party, Park the Car on Harvard Yard, and that's the extent of the history here. But I feel like if you've done a little bit of digging, you will find, or if you just take a damn, a duck tour, like something like that we often don't do, you understand that Boston is so rooted in so much history. And it's kind of like we are just a big museum here.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference too is that when I was coming up, Boston was 21 neighborhoods, and some of them bled into each other, and some of them were super disparate from each other and never interacted.
Yeah.
And there were some people from South End, Lower Roxbury, which bled together. Then you go into Chinatown, that's where your friends live. And then there's Downtown Crossing and Back Bay, which all bled into each other. But a lot of those kids, if you didn't have family in Dorchester or Mattapan, you didn't go there because you didn't have a car and you weren't going to hop on the train back then.
To go ahead.
Yeah, to go there. Because again, the Orange Line as we know it didn't exist until 1987. And it was a very Black experience to be on the L because it ran straight through Roxbury. And I have to always explain to people, it's like Roxbury was a different animal before and after white flight from Roxbury happened. And then they started taking away all the things that made Roxbury. Like there was a lot of economic power in Roxbury to the point where they removed it and took it downtown.
And now look at them now trying to revitalize downtown, and Roxbury's over here thriving. Well, it's not thrive, but it comparing back then to now, and you're seeing like you just talked about there was no cars and stuff like that, so people weren't necessarily taking public transportation. It seems now that the city is pushing us to take public transportation to go back to how things used to be back in the day. How do you think that is comparison, or how do you think that's going to work? If it was history and we didn't have real, like, you know, cars and stuff, and public transportation was our main route of getting everywhere, and they're pushing us that. Do you think it can work now in 2024?
Well, it kind of has to. One of the big differences too is that we were segregated so much that there were places that we stayed and didn't travel that much because we wanted to be safe. So black culture in Boston was always centralized in the South End and Lower Roxbury. That's where the jazz corner was. That's where if you were white and you wanted to party, you went to the South End, Lower Roxbury. And I was born. The reason why I'm the person I am is because I was born on Mass Ave, on the corner of Lower Roxbury and Mass Ave, like the border. And I was on Mass Ave between Columbus and Tremont, two major thoroughfares. And also all the culture of the city was right there. So you had the number 1 bus, you had the Orange Line that just opened in 1987. And at the time before that, you didn't travel too far. But now you're open to go anywhere. It's not like back in the days when you didn't go to Southie.
Yeah,
you know,
now you're
or you didn't go to the North End.
Take up space.
When I got older, I realized, the North End is a 30-minute walk straight through downtown Crossing and take a left through Government Center. And I didn't go here for all these times.
Because it's right down the street.
Yeah. Or like when I was a kid, I never thought to go to Fenway Park. And Fenway Park, I could walk to Fenway Park from where I live. So the public transit thing is a very different animal now than it was then because racism was so entrenched in Boston that people didn't leave their neighborhoods for anything. Now it's just like, I could go to Dorchester, but why am I going to that part of Dorchester from here? Like the way Boston is set up, even though it's the size of Shaq's left shoe,
which is pretty big but very small in comparison.
Exactly. Like you can know somebody in Dorchester and be like, I don't know, that's like a long distance relationship, but it really ain't. If they got a car, they're at your door in 10 minutes.
Roxbury and Hyde Park is definitely a long distance relationship. That is we might as well just drive to Brockton because it is.
We see all the funny memes all the time about how Boston is 2 hours from Boston.
Yeah, especially if you're in a car.
You know? So how did you get here? How did you get so steeped into Boston culture? You know, you're here, so it's a part of you. But how did you turn to journalism and media to, really kind of stake your claim in the game?
Quick answer, simple answer is being a little kid sitting on the stoop and having the elders tell me stories about my neighborhood. And at the time I lived there, I was born in 1975. I could see Boston City Hospital from my stoop where I was born. And I'm sitting on the stoop and all these older people are telling me about, Sammy Davis Jr. grew up here. And I'm like, no, he didn't. He's from Harlem. He's like, they left Harlem and came to Boston. Will Maston, his uncle, his dad, Sammy Davis Sr., they lived in Boston. And I'm like, what? Or, Quincy Jones used to live in the neighborhood. He used to live on Pembroke Street. And I'm like, you're lying to me.
No, you're not. When they live here.
And the thing is that, like, when you think about Martin Luther King Jr., you talk about him being like, the drum major for peace, preaching, speaking, doing sit-ins, being arrested by the police, being this really serious person. When I was growing up, people telling me stories about Martin Luther King Jr. playing basketball, hustling pool, drinking root beer floats, going to jazz clubs and dancing with Coretta because he met Coretta in my neighborhood, and they
in Bridge.
Yes, and they lived there. They each lived there in different apartments, and then they actually lived together in the Lincoln Apartments, which was on Northampton, a building that got raised, which is again in my neighborhood. So when you're a kid being told all these things, and that like Miles Davis used to hang out, on the block right there and smoke weed and steal people's women. And like, come on, man. It's like Duke Ellington spent so much time in Boston, the kids used to call him Uncle Duke.
Well, see, these are the things that, like, even while you're saying them now, I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah,
really,
Yeah, like every other at the time I was growing up, like in the late 70s, early 80s. My neighborhood was so run down and so dilapidated that oftentimes they didn't even paint like the crosswalks, and every third building along Mass Ave at that time was like burnt out or like abandoned, and a lot of the stairs were covered up in wood. So to have people tell me that this was a jazz club, this was a jazz club, this was a jazz club, the Harriet Tubman House, which no longer exists, and now it's been replaced by
low income.
Luxury apartments.
Yeah,
it used to be the Hi-Hat Club. It was like
I always think about that scene of Malcolm X where him and Spike Lee, him and Shorty are walking down Dudley, and it's all those clubs right there, and the swing clubs.
Yeah, the important thing to remember is that with Malcolm X saw the potential and beauty in being black not until his sister brought him to Roxbury.
Wow.
And he experienced life in Roxbury and the richness and the fullness of it. And then, he got on the streets, started hustling, doing what have you, just to make ends meet, to just like make his way. And people forget that the reason why all these Harlem musicians knew him wasn't because he was always in Harlem, it's because they always were in Boston.
So I heard you say that.
I heard you talk about that
and it was very interesting because we all, like, when we talk about our artists of today too, let's take our example like Coyle Ray or something like that. She was born here, but when there's always a debate about whether she's from here or not, or whatever.
She was raised in New Jersey.
So do you, like, people like them, would you consider them necessarily Bostonians? Or because there are a lot of people that came from other places here and grew up here or lived their adult lives or their teenage lives here. At what point do you get to be a Bostonian?
I say first, hopefully it's because you consider yourself one.
Okay.
But if a good chunk of your life, an important part of your life was here, then we get to claim you.
Okay.
Like, for instance, there's a lot of people that like moved around a lot, but crucial parts of their lives were here. And it kind of made them who they are, even if they moved away.
Yeah.
So they always come back, and it's like they get love here because this is where you found your bearings before you went out into the world.
Yeah.
So in that respect, like Malcolm X is from Roxbury.
Yes. See, like things like that. Like, I would definitely claim him as a Bostonian, but other people are like, he was born somewhere else.
Let's put it this way: when I was a kid growing up, again on that same block, directly across the street from me, Ella Little Collins, his sister, lived across the street from us. And people used to come and visit her. She was old, infirmed, in a wheelchair. And people would come visit her out of respect for all she did for Black Boston back in the days. And a lot of people would check up on her because she opened a school, which I think was called the something A Little School. And I can't find who it was named after because it's not any of her sisters and it's not their mother. And I can't find where the school was either. So, but I know that school was open and a lot of people went there. And I feel like a lot of her former students and a lot of people she mentored used to come by on Mass Ave and come up and see her.
Ella Fleming?
Little.
No,
Little.
Sarah A. Little School.
Sarah A. Little. This is Sarah A. Little. I don't know who
Sarah.
I don't know who Sarah is because Sarah's not none of her sisters and it's not her mother's name.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Could have been a little whitewashing of history.
Dart. I know growing up in Boston, I grew up with a certain type of pride, a certain sense of pride because of, we know that, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to schooling, I mean, I went to the first public school in Boston, the Mather School. When it comes to so many different things, we're first. Did you ever feel, and sports, did you ever feel a certain type of pride, especially when you travel around the world to different places like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because also being in Boston kind of makes you an amateur historian. Because there's so much history living and breathing all over.
Yes.
Like, I went to Boston Latin School, which is the first school in America. The reason Harvard College was made in 1636 was to have a place to send the kids that graduated from Boston Latin School, right? Then I went to English High, which was one of the first public schools in America, which was founded in 1821, right? And then, like, all over my neighborhood, at the end of my block was the NAACP building at 451 Mass Ave. And that was one of the first buildings made by, like, The people who started the NAACP came out of this thing called the Niagara Movement.
Mhm.
The overwhelming majority of them were from Massachusetts, and some of them were specifically from Roxbury. And the woman who bought that building lived directly across the street and was directly involved in the Niagara Movement before it became the NAACP.
Mhm.
And when you look at WEB, Du Bois, and all these other folks who were involved in NAACP early, they were all from Massachusetts and they were centered in Boston. So, but when people think of the NAACP, they think of New York.
They do.
But the leadership was in Boston.
Started here.
Yeah, the leadership was here. So
See, all of these things make me get a little bit more like bold, when I'm talking about Boston, because I think that's how I began to value who you are as a person, is just from seeing you or from reading you with all of the history of Boston. And oftentimes when you're fighting against Twitter and everybody else to understand how important Boston is, these things you don't really see.
Well, the reason being is because Black America, just default mode, hates Boston.
Yes. Why?
Why? They don't exactly know. They just know
Why?
that we've seen second and third hand footage or heard third hand stories about Boston. We've seen nonstop B-roll of busing.
Yep.
We've seen the Charles Stewart case, and that's all we know of Boston. Because when you look at media, there are almost no depictions of Black and Latino Boston, and it's always overshadowed by stories about white Boston.
True.
You appeared in the Charles Stewart the documentary. Can you tell us about your decision to be in that? And
Hold on.
I was
going to say before that.
Yeah.
So I feel what you're saying right now, and I watch a lot of interviews, especially when Benzino talks, because I know that he knows a lot of history on it, and some of it I agree on it too. Are you familiar with any of Benzino's recent interviews, or his interviews in general? Have you watched like
Ray's interviews?
Yeah,
like over the years, yeah.
So he did one with what's the rapper's name? Jay Electronica.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one. And he was talking about He was talking about how he feels like Boston is the powers that be strategically make it so that hip hop and Black Boston, that light isn't shined on it. Do you feel that way?
Oh, absolutely. Boston does nothing to highlight its non-white.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
It still does.
And the only way to get it to happen is to shame them into doing it, or one of the statements I always say is that we have to shame people into doing things. And if we're going to get Boston to advance, just like we've always had to do, we've always had to drag Boston across the finish line, kicking and screaming. And when we do, they take credit for it. Like they always want to do it. Just like in 1783, when slavery was abolished in Massachusetts by the Massachusetts legislature, the way it's framed is that white folks, out the goodness of their hearts, decided that slavery was just wrong.
Yes.
No, it was Black people from Massachusetts and Boston who fought tirelessly for over a decade straight, who kept petitioning with freedom petitions to the Massachusetts state legislature, and then got to the point where they were like, the Massachusetts state legislature was like, hey, I tell you what, we'll let y'all be on juries. Black men were on juries here in Massachusetts before anywhere else.
See, we have been talking about jury duty in the last couple of weeks too, because I think that's something else that has gone over our heads, is the importance of jury duty. Like importance of looking out at a crowd and seeing at least one face that looks like you. And it seems to me that Black people always kind of shy away from jury duty because it's boring or any other thing. But it's important for us to be civically engaged in that way.
Okay, think about in the late 1700s, the 1760s, 1770s, when Black men were able to be on juries, when Black men could go to law school in New England, when Black men were taking all these advantages and then going and then learning the law and then suing, helping people sue for their freedom. And this happened so much. And then they started winning. Elizabeth Freeman, who people know as Ma Bet, Quock Walker, they both won their cases against their masters. And then after they won, they sued for reparations. After these two cases happened, in 1783, suddenly the Massachusetts state legislature is like, all right, let's just abolish slavery. Because also you have to remember that in Massachusetts, it was a different case. There were people who were enslaved or owned by someone else who could read, who could write, who were educated, So
is and just to kind of tie this into like who you are as a person, did you pick up journalism to help tell those stories about what part? Was it racism? Was it hip hop? Was it media?
Well-
like where did you first find the passion and love for what you do?
I mean, when I was a little kid, I was the kid that always wanted to be telling the stories in class to the point where my teacher would send me to the front of the class and say, speak to everybody. And I would. And then she's like, shut up and sit down. And I'd be confused. I went home and I asked my brother, I was like, my teacher, I was talking to Keith, and my teacher said, hey, if you're going to talk to Keith, won't you talk to the whole class? I go up in front of the class, I start talking. I start going on and on and on for 15 minutes. And the teacher, she puts her hand over her head and she's like, sit down. And I'm like, why'd she do that? He was like, kid, you're supposed to have this thing called fear of public speaking.
Oh.
So she thought when she put you in front of the class that you would shut down and then she could humble you and sit you down. He's like, but you took the opportunity to speak to everybody in the class about everything you knew. I was like, yeah, I can only talk to Keith. Now I get to talk to everybody. So I had that mindset from when I was young. Plus, when the Source started up, we had all these rap magazines and none of them were critical. None of them were being serious about writing about rap. They kind of glossed over it, just like Right On
What do
did.
you mean like glossed over it?
Okay, so like when you read Right On, Right On was an entertaining magazine. Cynthia Horner was the editor. Black Beat was an entertaining magazine. You know, Word Up. You know, rap.
Just a little,
But they wouldn't go into
a little quick
details.
little something about
quick little
something.
something about something, and then they have the poster.
Yeah,
And they have the poster.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the Source came up, you know, out of a dorm room in Harvard, from guys who were on the Street Beat radio show at Harvard WHRB, that you started reading these pieces about rap and things that happen in the rap world that felt like what I read in Rolling Stone.
Oh.
You know, that felt
And
like what
Rolling Stone was a little bit more critical. They were a little bit more pardoning of edge.
They were extremely
Yeah.
critical. Rolling Stone was so critical that there were rock acts that like, I'm never speaking to you guys again because of what you said about my album. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and the Source was the first critical rap magazine to the point where like Russell Simmons and the people of the Source would be like, we're pulling all our ads because we didn't like what you said about the new LL Cool J album. And they would laugh. Like, "Psh, man, you're going to be back.
Yeah.
Because we're the only people in the game.
hip-hop Bible.
Yeah, we're the hip hop Bible. And I mean, this is why rap pages had to come out. And then like, just like the early days of like jazz journalism.
Even right there, if you don't want to keep it right there real quick, even that, I remember from my age, you see right now, you see what I'm remembering right now. You know, it was big for me to be in Mattapan, and I'm seeing a conversion van with speakers on the side of it that say the Source on it.
That's dope.
And we're
I
in
remember that
Boston.
too.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember the times that they had the big RV out riding around Fields Corner and stuff like that. I remember those times. And you know, when they had Antonio Ansaldi, you're flipping through the Source and you're seeing 2-page ads, and you're knowing that this is coming from Boston. Those times, you know, we don't have that anymore. And shout out to, you know, we give Ray a lot of slack and a lot of things, but at those times, they were able to place Boston on the map where nobody else was doing it.
Yeah. But I feel like there was a lot of resentment for that because they felt that there was a bunch of dudes from Boston who were like strong-arming their way.
Yeah.
As opposed to getting it by merit. But the fact of the matter is that
they got it by merit.
But here's the thing with Black Boston. If we don't force the issue,
literally,
it's never going to be spoken about.
Yes.
So what I started doing was I started going on message boards and I started like telling stories of Black Boston and everything else because I was combating ignorance. Because one of the things that people like to do when it comes to Black Boston is talk over us and act like we don't exist, or that because if a Black person says anything positive about their experience living in Boston, they feel like we had like Stockholm syndrome.
I mean, let's stop right there because we went into racism a little bit, and you mentioned all of these different things that, you know, Boston has typically been on the map for white people shit. When it came to telling the stories of, you know, of Black Bostonians and having to kind of force your way through that, how did you emerge out of that, you know, like out of that era of just keeping it real and being being accepted for your voice of keeping it real. Like we don't have a lot, like even right now it's 2024, we don't have a lot of publications for Black news. We don't have a lot of radio stations for Black news. We don't have a lot of the things that it seemed like we were building a while ago, but they all kind of faded out. There's no more. I was listening, to you talking about Black rap hip hop shows on the different radio stations. That often doesn't even happen anymore at all. We got like a little launch pad and that's trash. But, and other radio stations that are doing or trying to do it. How did you kind of like force, or how did Boston force its way into that besides the source?
Well, I mean, one of the things was college radio. Because we had WILD, and as we all know, WILD shared a signal with another station, and when the sun went down,
they went down. Sun up to sundown.
It did not air anymore. So what happened was, and I tried to explain
block radius.
Yes, I tried to explain this to people. Like WILD served the community in so many ways. It gave news. It did all this other stuff, but also it played reggae, calypso, soca, zouk sometimes, and it played Boston funk and R&B and soul from local groups. And then when that station went off, everybody in the scene picked it up. So WRBB, Boston, WERS, did it. And then like every other station did it. And occasionally you might be able to sneak something on WBCN, So like everybody would, and then God bless a Sonny Joe White, who was at KISS 108. He was one of the important Black folks with power. He was program director at KISS 108. He had so much power that he was able to get certain Black songs on the radio at this top 40 station, and people didn't even realize how powerful he was. He was the guy who got Run DMC added to the rotation before they even did it in New York. And he like forced New York's hand to add, those early Run DMC singles to the radio at the time when rap didn't even get played while the sun was still up. So these are a lot of things that Black Boston contributed to the world. Like when we talk about disco, Donna Summer comes to mind. Very few people knew Donna Summer was even from Boston, except for everybody in Boston who celebrated her at every point.
Every day.
Boston didn't celebrate Donna Summer until she died. Let's just keep that a buck.
And flowers before you die.
Yeah, but in Boston, people were always talking about Donna, to the point I went to school with girls that were talked about Auntie Donna.
Auntie Donna.
Yeah, and like and the wild part is that like Boston contributed so much. If you look at disco, like the early days of disco, the first remixers were from Boston. We're talking about Tom Moulton, John Luongo, who brought on Arthur Baker, who brought everybody from Boston, including the Johnson brothers, who we know as Johnson Crew, and everybody else from the Boston Funk All-Stars, who revolutionized Black music and space funk to the point where people start calling it electro, and then took all the credit away from Boston.
Of course.
So when you listen to things like Joystick by is it Midnight Star or Atlantic Star, people think that they originated that style of music when back in 1979, 1980, we were hearing that type of Boston funk with synthesizers and people using the talk and people using a different talk box that Stevie Wonder used, or a different talk box that Roger Troutman used in Ohio in Boston. They were doing different effects that everybody bit because everybody was using the same record pool. And the disco record pool started in Boston before they even opened in New York. All these things I'd be talking about and I'd be telling people about, and they'd be like, he has to be making this up.
See, because that's what it's, because we don't hear it.
Right.
It's not somewhere that you can go and there's probably a couple of workshops and a little Eventbrite that you can go out and hear the history of Boston in a 30-minute span. But there's not really a place where you can go and really kind of feel that pride here. What would you say is weird?
Well, one of the big issues too is that I've been writing about this since probably online since 2005, right? And it's now 2024. And I've been writing books, helping people out with their books, probably since about 2018, 2019. And I've been in contact with literary agents. I've been in contact with publishers, everybody you can imagine. And I've been trying to sell stories about Black Boston, books about Black Boston art, Black Boston music, Black Boston jazz. and nobody's biting. So it has to get to a point where I do this to the point where
you got to. My advice to you, brother, is you know the history yourself. You got to get a crew together and let's fund it up.
That's what's going to end up happening. It's going to get to the point where
nobody's going to be able to tell it like you.
So it gets to the point where it's like we just have to do it ourselves. And the thing is that the other part is that you can grind, help everybody else. To the point where everybody's like, the next project you have, we have to be a part of. Okay, cool. Because my next project is going to be about Black Boston.
Yes.
Whether it's a TV show that centers Black and Latino Boston life without having white people have to be the lead of it, or if it's a documentaries about Black Boston culture and what is given to the world and how people don't acknowledge it, or why it's been completely why it hasn't been unearthed yet. It's been and we have to unearth it.
I mean, I wanted to. That's a good segue to the question that Tony was asking you. But I was in it before that. Let's talk about music. I always felt like low key New Jack Swing was started because of the production that what's the name of the new edition? What's the name of the guy that signed them back in the day?
Oh, you talking about Maurice Starr?
Maurice Starr. That sound, I feel like that sound, Popcorn Love, early, very early before New Jack Swing, but I feel like it kind of fostered in that type of sound.
New Jack Swing is something else. The sound that was unique to Boston was what we called space funk / Boston funk.
Oh, okay.
And space funk
because we didn't have no sound. Everybody, we ain't got Boston, don't got no sound. Boston don't got no sound.
It did. Space funk and Boston funk was a very unique sound that kind of took off and was profitable everywhere.
So like Africa, early Africa, Bambaataa type of thing.
That's a space funk song.
Yeah, that's the type of sound. Is that the sound you're talking about?
In order to erase Boston from it, everybody, again, I talked about the record pools. So people started using that sound because it was popular. And there are about 5 to 8 Boston acts that were doing this sound between 1979 and 1982. But suddenly, when people start talking about electro, they remove all of those Boston groups, with the exception of the Johnson Crew. And they act like the Johnson Crew were latecomers. The Johnson Crew.
I'm very loving that name, by the way, because this is the Johnson Crew right here.
But they are kind of erase everybody. And then when they tell the story, it's like, all right, all this became electro. It was like, no, it was Boston funk first. Then Planet Rock comes out. And the important thing to remember about Planet Rock is there's 2 versions. There's the Planet Rock version with the Trans Euro Express that became Planet Rock. And then there's the version that Arthur Baker did without the Kraftwerk part that he gave to his Boston homies who were in 2 groups. They became Planet Patrol, and they did a song called Play at Your Own Risk. It's the same song. Right? Now, if you're talking about...
what's the name of the group? What's the name of the group?
Planet Patrol. Play at Your Own Risk. So if you talking about New Jack Swing. New Jack Swing was a hybrid of what the Minneapolis sound was.
Recordings.
Which is what Prince was doing, which is what all the people that he worked with was doing. And then you look at what like Full Force was doing.
Right.
Blending rap, hip hop sensibilities with their music. And then you look at what Teddy Riley derived from that. Because there was a lot of R&B that was being made that had a rap sensibility. And you have to remember the black music, man. The black music, the people that were vanguards of black music were very afraid of rap. Because they knew...
It was grungy?
Well, no. Because they knew that the thing about rap was like the Borg. It will assimilate everything. It can incorporate everything. Like, rap was wild because you could take the old funk song and you could take pieces of it, and you could make it rap. However, you could take the new disco song and you could do a rap version of disco song, and the kids loved it.
I love it.
And so that's very scary to somebody who is a vanguard of black music. Like, y'all don't even play instruments. Y'all use turntables. Y'all use all the music. So you don't need to know how to play that. You could just take a record and go and just take it. But now I could use this bass line, use these drums. I can I can take somebody's words, I can make it the hook, and then I
Mhm.
can make something completely new on top of it.
And we see that repeating now all
Yes,
the time. Like music is just so dope.
They call it
Yeah.
remix culture. Hip hop repurposes everything. Doesn't matter what your background is,
Mhm.
doesn't matter where you're from. You can have your part in hip hop and be authentic to yourself and still do that. And that was very threatening to the black music establishment.
Makes
And
sense.
Boston was key in all of that. And it completely gets overwritten and erased. Like without New Edition was a Trojan horse that brought rap to everybody. That brought Boston funk and soul to everybody. And we tend to forget that. Without them, basketball wasn't an entertainment like it is. They brought Roxbury to the world. And then the world was pretty much tried to erase the fact that they were from
And
Roxbury.
that's what I hate. You know, like after and it goes to one of your earlier statements, as soon as you make kind of like a breakthrough, then people try to erase the history of what happened, which leads into your question earlier, Miss Tony, about the Charles Stewart, just kind of getting into racism and our lived experience. I'm not sure what you were going to ask. Go ahead.
No, I asked just to talk about his role in that. And
So what happened with that was I'd done a bunch of other stuff. And like, so I'd done enough stuff and I've written in Boston Magazine a few pieces.
And before you get into that, we'll just name a couple of them. Your Complex, NPR, Mass Appeal, Okayplayer, Ebony, Level Production, Publications, the Bay State Banner, Boston Globe, Boston Globe Magazine, Boston Magazine. You're also a part of not only just this Charles Stewart story, but you're a part of a lot of different documentaries that have come out of here. You know, go into that.
So what happened was I'd done a whole bunch of work and stuff. And so I got contacted on IG by a guy who says, my next documentary is going to be about the Charles Stewart case. And I would like to talk to
Just
you.
randomly?
Well,
you be on.
Yeah. I got DM, but the name, I knew the name because that's the guy that made The Last Dance.
Yeah.
For ESPN about Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
really?
And he's from here. He's from Massachusetts. And I'm like, wait, let me check that. So I check his profile. I go check everything, go to LinkedIn, I check everything to make sure that this, it's actually him. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, yeah, I'm actually in town right now. We can meet. Within about 3 days, we met and we talked about the Charles Stewart case from each of our perspectives. And I said, the first thing that came out my mouth, I was like, I saw the HBO joint about the Red Sox when they reversed the curse. There was no black person involved in that except for Howard Bryant when he talked about the racism of the Boston Red Sox.
Of course, they're bringing somebody to talk about that.
And they didn't talk about black folks' love of baseball or black and Latino kids from my neighborhood who participated in the South End Baseball League, or they didn't talk about the base, which was started from another dude who lived in the South End, and how black and Latino Boston was in love, enamored with baseball. And even though we didn't go to Fenway Park, we watched the games, and you could go to any barbershop and they tell you, who was the starting pitching rotation. And I was like, I hate that.
We had our own baseball leagues. We grew up right off of Dudley Street, and in that park in front of us, Mary Hannon, there used to be baseball games,
big baseball games, hitting up all our windows and cars.
And I was like, that pissed me off. I was like, the other part is that when they did the Celtics versus Lakers, best of enemies. I was like, when Magic Johnson said, and people used to come up to me and said, we from Roxbury and we root for the Lakers. I was like, they did not think to talk to any black Bostonians and have them give a counter or give their perspective on being a Boston Celtics fan at that time and what it was like. I was like, I hate that because every time somebody does a production of something about Boston, they act like we don't exist and you never hear from us.
It was maddening. It is angering to see that often when they're doing documentaries. And I'm like, yo, this is why they come back to that first question. Do black people live here? Because we're not portrayed.
Yeah. So I said to him, I was like, if you're going to do this story, it's important that you center Black Boston and the turmoil and the anguish that they went through, and also how Black Boston immediately said, "This is bullshit."
Yep.
This doesn't make any sense. All we did was sit around and break down all the facts of the case and say none of this makes sense. Why would he do that? Why would he go there? If someone committed a crime, they're not going to do that. There's no place to escape from there. That's why the documentary, the docuseries took on the life that it did. And what did it do at the end? It centered Black Boston. And made a case that we were very involved in this. And if you look at the families who had to deal with everything that came down from Ray Flynn and the Boston Police Department and everything else, and see what they've turned it into now, that happened because you went to the right people. You went to Black Boston. So I want to take that as a springboard, that if you ever come in this city and try to do another documentary, do another thing, you better talk to the right people. Like they did that documentary about Bill Russell, right? Did they talk to any of the Black folks in Boston who knew Bill, who listened to his radio show?
So how does that fly? I know how it flies. But how does it fly when you're doing a documentary about somebody so pivotal within the Black culture, and then you don't touch base with the Black people in the culture?
A lot of times it happens because the person who produced it, the people who produced it,
don't do no homework.
They did. Well, that too, and plus they don't. When you leave a bunch of folks in a room, the very last thing they're thinking about is talking to the right Black folks in Boston, because they don't think the Black folks in Boston even exist.
True.
So it was lucky that we got somebody who's actually from New England, actually from Massachusetts, who actually knew that I know who I need to talk to.
It would be crazy, and I'm trying to figure out. It would be crazy of them doing a documentary without centering the Black folks, because the whole issue why it got to be how it was so big is because a Black folk and a Black community was blamed for that very horrific murder. So it would boggle me if they didn't reach out. Like, how did you not?
Yeah,
how did you not?
One of the things about Boston Stories is that we're side dressing. We're the window piece. We're only here to give this perspective on we're accessories. We're only here to give our take on this specific piece of information or this specific event. That's it.
And stay within the confines of which I need you to talk about it. Do not tell no truth here.
So when I started being involved in documentaries, like there's the Red Sox documentary piece that I did for PBS about the Fenway Park, and it was me and Howard Bryant, and we went all the way in. When we talked about our experience, the Red Sox or what have you, when I do it about the Celtics, I do the same thing. I talk about all the first that the Boston Celtics did. And it's insane because people hate the Boston Celtics everywhere. and they pretty much associate them with the KKK. And I'm like, are you aware you're talking about the team that drafted the first Black player with the intention of playing him? The first team that had 4 Black players on starting, then had 5 Black players starting, went on an 18-game win streak, won the championship that year, inspired the 1966 Texas Western team to have all 5 Black players. At the time, they had 4 Black starters, 3 or 4 Black starters. It was happening in 63-64 with the Loyola team in NCAA. Without the Boston Celtics, you don't have Black referees in the NBA, which came directly from the Boston shootout.
We got our local historian right here, Schneider. He says on Luke Cage, there was a dialogue about the Black cop being a Celtics fan, and then the other cop says that they're racist. She ended up schooling him about how the Celtics actually drafted the first few Black players, coaches, and GMs. So that's right into what you were just saying.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is that when you think about when you're a Black person from Boston and Massachusetts, you're hypersensitive to these type of things.
Yes.
I would watch Everybody Hates Chris, and he would just throw in these completely inaccurate things about, that's how That's how Robert Parrish felt when they traded for Dennis Johnson. I was like, he played on a team that was overwhelmingly black. At one point, they got rid of all the white guys who started except for Larry Bird. You know?
Yeah.
Like the Boston Celtics, as I remember them, were a different animal before the 85-86 season when, you know, all of a sudden you no longer have Henderson. You no longer have Cornbread Maxwell. You no longer have Tiny Archibald, right? So all of a sudden the team went from being majority black to overwhelmingly white. And that was one of the best teams in the world, and they were always on TV, and they always put them against the Lakers. So it was weird too, because at the time they tried to make the Lakers seem like they were like the super black. LA was 10% black, and their coach was a white dude. The Boston Celtics had a black head coach who was not the first nor the second black head coach. He was like fourth in their history, because Satch Sanders was a head coach. And when you look at the Lakers' history of hiring black coaches, it's sad. And the Boston Celtics had black head coaches, black GMs. There were no really GMs before Wayne Embry, who became a Celtic. People started telling him you need to look into being an executive. That's when he started doing it. And then when you wanted to be an executive in NBA, you would go to Harvard. So like a lot of people ended up in Boston that way. So there's so many things that Black Boston has contributed to the world, and the only people that know about it is us.
People that
or people who have heard you speak. I mean, like Sauce alluded to earlier, we went on a duck tour and they were telling all these things about Black Boston, the Freedom Trail, you know, the 54th, all of those things. And we were like, oh my gosh, Boston's so rich in Black history. And then we talked to you. It was like, we didn't learn nothing.
Boston's very Black.
Let's put it this way. When I used to give tours, well, I'll probably start doing it again, but it's just like, logistically it's a lot. And I think about ableism, and everybody can't do all that walking. And the thing is that my tour is only covering like a few blocks.
So you do have a tour?
Yeah.
Okay.
So but there's so much packed into that neighborhood, so much Black history that it's like that I have to stop on the corner and be like that were this.
Have you reached out or touched base with Colin from Live Like a Local? He does Black History Black tours in Roxbury. If I'll connect you guys together. But just be in the interest of time, I did want to get on just one thing when it comes to I was listening to you on the CWTF podcast, and one point you got into the evolution of the rapper and the DJ, and how when, you know, back in the days, it used to be the DJ who was pretty much, you know, the main person, and the rappers were usually like, you know, the DJs had to pick them. Yeah. DJ nowadays, it seems like DJs don't get a lot of respect. And maybe that's just due to the power of social media and, you know, everybody being a content creator and whatever. How do you feel like the evolution of the DJ and the rapper is now? And do you think that there'll ever be like a real fusion between the two again?
Well, considering that back in the days, the DJ was the mouthpiece for the entire community and did everything. You know, back in the days, the DJ wasn't just the person who had the records. The person was this knowledge of the records, what records were, what breaks were, because you're the only person that knew, because you used to soak the labels or hide the labels and stuff like that. But on top of that, you had to have a sound system, because a lot of people were building against this is Afro-Caribbean and Latino culture. People were learning how to build sound systems and make their own sound systems and customizing
sound boys and things,
and customizing their sound systems. And so you were everything, and that's not the case anymore. It's in the hands of everybody. And also the way that the corporate monsters made it is that rappers can stand on their own. The rapper can stand on their own. And the way things are in the mainstream world is that you don't even need to be good.
Say it
as a rapper.
Don't even quote it. You just don't
now
need
it's just
to be
like,
good.
if you're a rapper, okay, I need to find a DJ. Back in the days, the DJ was everything, and the rappers would seek out the DJ.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you better hope that DJ's holding auditions because we need to be down with this person. And then there was an entryway, right? When you were an MC, usually you were a dancer.
Oh.
Usually you were, or you were a record
Entertainer,
person,
yeah.
or you were helping with the sound system, or you were doing security.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that anymore.
None of it.
Because with the internet and with like all these different
AI.
outlets, with
Technology, everything.
with technology, you don't need those entry points anymore. Like back in the days, even if you were gonna rap, you had to find somebody who rhymed. You had to have somebody critique your rhymes. You had to do this. You had to write routines. You had to do all this. You had to rehearse. Like, again, coming up in the Boston talent show circuit, you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to any corner, any hallway, any park without seeing a bunch of folks practicing, performing, doing the steps, learning the steps. And then, I was like, that was my experience.
To me, the DJ is still relevant, but the DJ has more so turned into the producer. If you're a rapper and you have a certain sound and you have a producer, that's your DJ. That's the person that you build your synergy, your sound with.
I mean, DJ is always going to be important because DJs are pretty much the entryway to music and the curators of all this stuff. But also the DJ was so much more, because just like with the radio, it provided so much for the community, the culture. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to throw this jam. Everybody's invited. There's going to be food. We're going to play music. We're going to have fun. The kids, you don't have to work. We're going to look out for the kids. Like, the DJ was the lifeline for the community.
Yeah.
And put on people, like a lot of people were able to have careers and have lives and do and pursue all these things because a DJ believed in them. So that's still a thing.
Good.
That's never gonna die.
I have one more question. Well, I don't know how many more questions you have, but I wanted to know. I know. So this Charles Stewart documentary wrapped up on current Boston.
Yes.
It said that old narrative is kind of out the door right now. What's your thoughts on Black? I've currently felt like in the last 5 years we've been on a somewhat of a Black renaissance coming. What's your stance on that? Do you see that? And what's your thoughts on it?
It's happening because there was no other recourse. It's happening because it had to. It's happening because it can now. All right. When you look at who's in office, when you look at who's on the Boston City Council, when you look at who's sitting in certain seats, and even at City Hall, it can happen now. This was a dream that people like Mel King had back in the 80s, or the 70s. And we can actually go forward and make it happen now. Like, the crazy thing is that you have somebody like a Jaylen Brown, say openly when he signs his new contract, which is the richest contract in NBA history at the time, I want to put down roots in Boston and try to create Black Wall Street in Boston. When people online were saying, he's not feeling Boston, he's going to leave in free agency. I didn't hear any response from any of them. I didn't hear them apologize, nothing. But now the work starts. We have things like we have the Embrace Boston community. Yeah. We have all these different things in place, right? Now it's time to follow through with all that, make it happen, because at no point before could we really make it happen and make it materialize like we can now, right? So, like, it's crazy because my boy Petta, you said this to me. I'm with a company called Boston Legends, right? And he's with
one of them hats.
Mathematics. Oh yeah, right there. My boy Hefe
Replay. Yep.
Yeah, rest in peace. Today he just dropped the By Any Means Necessary collection. So if you go to mathematicathletics.com, you could see the By Any Means Necessary collection.
Mathematics.
Yeah, they do some great things in the community.
They've been around for a minute.
I've tried to steal I've started to steal your legend hat from a lot of people.
The Legends thing has gone crazy. When we did the podcast, one of the promo things we did was a hat, like the old starter hats, Boston Legends, and then people were like, "Yo, where's the hat?
That's what it wears. Give me the hat."
And we're just sitting in the North End, like, Milk. We need to make them hats. It's me, Petta, and Milk. It's like, we need to make them hats. And then the sweatshirts and everything came out. The hoodies came out. And if you've seen a documentary with me in it, you've seen me rock the Boston Legends to let everybody know if you see what's homegirl's name, Everyday Maggie wearing a Boston Legends, it started with me. It started with us. You know, she don't even know. I bet you she don't know where it started. I bet you she don't know that the face of that shit is me. I bet you she don't know.
Our mom is tuning in and she said, he is so knowledgeable, amazing. I'm learning so much about Black Boston. Thank you.
I'm just a product of my community, the South End, Lower Roxbury.
And Mom, he's half Honduranian too.
I'm telling you, if I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that a whole bunch of people in my community would just come up and tell the little kid stories. And I'd be like, that can't be true.
That's
I never read that in a book.
We often talk about, you know, the missing of OGs and how we, like this era, could really use that kind of
mentorship.
Yeah, that type of mentorship and that just type of knowledge base. And that's why I felt it was very important to have you here, especially during Black History Month, when, you know, like talking about, we're very, very prideful. Obviously, Spark FM was born to, you know, at least to emulate what WILD did for the community.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that the Black community knows that there is a media station that is legal, that is not pirated, that is doing everything that they can to really kind of give Black folks, Black, Brown, Latino, you know, West Indian, a home that they can hear their heroes on there and they can learn these things. So I'm very grateful for you to be here. And I've been following you for a long time. I told him this morning, I was like, I'm a little nervous because Dart is here and he knows so many things, but it's important for us that are in this kind of media landscape right now to understand the history so that we don't be afraid to, you know, bust down barriers and to force our way into the industry so that people do understand that when it comes to Boston, we want to be included in the narrative.
I mean, one thing I do every Black History Month is I go to Copp's Hill Burying Ground. I wrote a piece about it for Boston Magazine, and I honor the Black Bostonians who lived here first between 1650 and, for those who don't know, between 1650 and 1850, there was a Black community, the first free Black community in the colonies, period, was in Boston in the North End. It was called New Guinea. And the only thing remaining to let you know that they were Black Bostonians there is Copp's Hill Burying Ground exists. And there are headstones of some of, you could count on one hand, of Black Bostonians that live there. However, I say there's between 10,000 and 12,000 people buried there. Between 1,000 and 1,200 of them were Black Bostonians who lived there over that 200-year span.
Wow.
And there's just a swath of land bare in that burying ground. That's where we're buried, along Winter Hill Road.
And a handful.
And a handful of remaining, because again, you had to have enough money to have a rock
headstone, in the first place.
And a lot of those headstones are so old that they're not even legible anymore. But the very few headstones from Black Bostonians are there. But like, just to give you an idea, like Phyllis Wheatley is buried there, and we don't know exactly where, but we know where she is.
Do we know in the general area?
We know the general area. One of the most important people in American history and history period. First published Black author, period.
And an enslaved person at that time.
Yes, got free and died destitute.
Crazy.
Dart, I'm waiting for you to write your book. You need to write some series.
Oh yeah,
a couple of books out now.
An encyclopedia.
Yeah, but the specific books I want to write,
Yeah.
it's an uphill battle trying to get publishers to do it. So I have to like shame them into doing it, help enough
We
people.
love a good shame.
Help enough people make bestsellers and then get them on board. I want to do, you have to get on board with. So, or just a backdoor way, just get famous enough where I finally am able to do it. Either way, I'm going to get there.
And the documentary, whenever I do it, I want to be involved. I want to be in the background.
Dart, this is an extension from Spark FM to you. We welcome you here anytime. Anytime that you need to get some off your chest or anything like that, please understand you have a great platform here that you can, hit me up. They're like, yo, we need to talk about this. There are a lot of times that we do hope that people like yourself, tap into us to continue the conversation of Black Boston. Right now, I do, like Tristan explained, I do feel like we're in a Black revolution in some type of way. And I feel like now is the time for us to really get loud and aggressive about it so that we can pave the way for the next generation that is coming, because they don't really care too much. And we want to kind of force them to care if they can, because out of every generation, there's a few of them that really actually, do the work. They actually do learn the history and they actually want to continue it. So I'm hoping that you would utilize the station to continue to tell those stories and to visit us often when there are things going on. Any last minute?
He's a Leo. I had to look up your sign.
I'm a super Leo.
I had to look up your sign to figure out what this man is.
I was born August 17th at 7:30. I'm a super Leo.
You're not too far away from my mom.
Let's put it this way, to give you an idea what kind of Leo I am. I have the same birthday as Apollo Creed.
Oh, he was aggressive. What was your and just because we're gonna actually just sit here for a while with you, if you don't mind, until 11. What was your racial experience here in Boston? Because when they talk about, Boston's so racist, Boston's racist, the most racist city in the whole world. Whoa. I was actually at a Black history panel talking about Black business the other day, and one of the gentlemen actually said that there on the panel, is a Black guy, very prominent Black guy, and he said, Boston could be considered one of the most racist, probably is the most racist, and I was like, that's just not true for me. In my experience. So when you hear things like that, how do you combat that question, that statement?
Well, here's the thing. My experience growing up in Boston was very different than the idea of Boston. Okay. Again, I grew up in the South End, Lower Roxbury, directly across the street from Malcolm X's sister. The beginning of my block was the NAACP building. Across the street from that was the Harriet Tubman house, and I had all these prominent Black folks as my neighbors. Mel King was my mom's friend and my neighbor. Alan Rohan Crite, the man who created the first images of Black Boston and joy in Black Boston, was one of my neighbors. Mel King, a lot of people don't know this, he kind of started the Rainbow Coalition, and Jesse Jackson kind of took it and ran with it. Mel King was running for mayor in 1983. Like, unheard. Yeah. Like all the Black leadership, like we're talking about Malcolm X. Malcolm X was from my neighborhood, right? So I lived in a neighborhood full of Black Latino kids and some Chinese folks that, because Chinatown was right nearby and Chinatown kind of bled in. So my experience growing up in Boston was the complete opposite of how people think it is. It was a very mixed, very happy thing. And the only thing was that we had our white kids imported. We had white kids bust in from South Boston and Charlestown. So what would happen was they would get off the bus. They would try to say "neh." My big brothers told me that. My big brother told me this. He was like, "Hey, yo, look. My big brother, my cousin says, look, if any white kids come up to you and say "neh," beat their ass immediately, because they're they're calling you one of two things: a nigger or a Knicks fan. No. Either way, whoop their ass. And so they never got to the girl. That's my experience. Yeah, they never got to the girl. They try to say something to Chinese kids, they just jump them and beat them up. So that's my experience. And what would happen after that was, because they learned this from their cousins or their dad or their mom, but after that happened, now I had a friend, believe it or not. So my first white friends that I made who were from Charlestown and from like South Boston, the first friends I had that got in trouble with the law, the first kids that got locked up, the first ones that got stabbed, shot, died, pregnant, all were from Charlestown or South Boston. And then I started to realize that poverty was everywhere.
Yes.
These kind of issues that you face when you leave the house, these traps, this world of homeschool were everywhere. If you were poor, you were facing the same thing. Yeah. So that was my experience growing up. I used to come home from Boston Public School System, and they would have one side being English. You flip over the other side, it being Cape Verdean Creole, it being Spanish, it being like every other language you could imagine, Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese,
Asian Creole, Portuguese.
Yeah. Like so That's what I remember. I remember one side being in English, you flip it over, and it'd be like 7 other languages, which were the language of the kids who were native to the school. And like, I remember going to school and sitting in a class in like the Blackstone School, which is in Via Victoria, which was created heavily to serve the growing Latino, largely Puerto Rican community, which was in my neighborhood, Via Victoria. And being in the Blackstone School,
parties there.
yes, being in the Blackstone School, and also the floor lords this taught me how to b-boy.
Shout out to the floor lords.
So, and I remember sitting in that class and my teacher being like, Jose Alicia, and the kids be like, Alicia. It's pronounced Alicia. And we had a Jose A, a Jose B, a Jose C, a Jose G in my class in 1st and 2nd grade. You know? So like that was my experience growing up in Boston, and I've never seen that. Also, I need to get this out. I was in kindergarten 1 and kindergarten 2 at the Prince School before it got turned to condos. Okay?
Yeah. Everything's a condo.
We
right
had
now.
we had a good amount of white kids. 1st grade, they sent us to the Blackstone School. We still had white kids in the class who were living in the city and not being bussed in. I need to add that. 2nd grade, almost 75% of the kids that were there the year before, the white kids who weren't being bussed in, weren't there anymore. 3rd grade, they're almost all gone. And I'm like, what happened to all the white kids? My brother. And he explained to me, again, if you don't know about the Boston public school system, they work on this thing where 4th grade, they start the kids in advanced classes. Because we're on the path to taking what they call the Latin test, the ISEE, the Latin test. And every year we took this thing called the MET, the Metropolitan Exam. And it would tell us what we're doing in math and reading and everything else and spelling and all that other stuff.
Is that now map testing?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you did really well, you're on the track to being in advanced classes. And white parents saw, if my kid ain't going to Latin, then I'm taking them out right now and I'm putting them in, private school. I'm putting them in Catholic school. So by the time I got to 5th grade at the Quincy, and then I got to 6th grade at the Timothy, which was on Roxbury Road, right near what was then Dudley Square, there were almost no white kids, except for a few white kids were there because they were in advanced classes. And so that was my experience. I was like, and then when I got to Boston Latin School, it was culture shock because it was the first school I've ever been in that was overwhelmingly white. And it was like a John Hughes film. We used to watch John Hughes films to understand white culture, because because you had jocks and you had like nerds and your chilies. At Boston Latin School, everybody's a nerd. Who you gonna pick on? Like, how you gonna pick?
Got in the same.
How you gonna call somebody a nerd when your dream is to go to Vassar? You know what I'm saying? To go to Carnegie Mellon. Like that's your dream in life. That's what your parents want you to go to Yale, and you call somebody a nerd. Shut up. You're over here translating Latin and Greek with me too. Shut up.
Exactly.
You're doing the same thing.
So yeah, so my experience growing up, I grew up in an environment that was very heavily like, about Black culture and Latino culture and the Caribbean culture. When you walk down the street, you're hearing salsa, you're hearing merengue, you're hearing
some
calypso,
soca.
you're hearing soca,
some R&B and some country.
Like
Coming
when
out the West
reggae,
Indian
when reggae Espanol blew up, I was going to English High in Jamaica Plain. Everybody's wearing filas and you're hearing like Proyecto Uno blasting out of speakers. So that was my experience, and I've never seen that depicted in anything Boston.
So that's how I always feel, because they do feel like you're traumatized or whatever like that. And I'm like, I know, I understand what racism is. In some parts as you grow up, you can probably, figure out where the racist is coming from. But my lived experience in Boston hasn't been a racist one. And that, I guess that's why I'm so passionate about defending Boston. But then I always feel like maybe I'm in the minority and everybody else have gone through these traumatic racist
It's because people heard
things.
third-hand stories about what Boston is and the idea of what Boston is. And they're like, there's no way I should be hearing Black folks from Boston defending Boston. And I'm like, I lived it.
Me too. I'm here.
This.
I was born and raised here. I didn't see that.
For a person like me, it's like there was definitely a time where the culture kind of feels like it's just left. We're one of the few cities that right to this day don't have a sound. We don't have a dance. You
Well,
look at Philly,
here's
look at
the
Jersey,
thing
look at all
about
these
that.
places.
Boston had sounds.
That's what I mean.
Boston had dance.
That's
Let's put it this way.
We had.
When we had Boston funk and space funk, it went elsewhere and they completely erased us from it.
Yes.
But think about we didn't have dances. Oh yeah, Boston started dances. The Monkey started in Roxbury.
But that's what I'm saying.
But when it got to Detroit and became Mickey's Monkey, when it got everywhere else, it became this Monkey.
Yeah.
And so people forgot the Monkey started
That's
in
what I'm saying.
Roxbury.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like we and not only that, it kind of evolved. I don't want to say that. Let me say, we had dancing. It turned into dance hall. The hip hop culture. There was a point where the hip hop culture wasn't so prevalent, and dance hall culture definitely took over. And
Boston,
that was my era.
yeah, that was a pretty big time in Boston, the reggae era.
You know? And that's also a history that's not spoken on. How diverse and different the
People used to come to Boston to poach our talent and take it somewhere else. All the time. Folks will come from LA, folks will come from New York. They come to the Boston Talent shows and they just snatch people off the stage damn near. That's how 9.9 got their deal from Richard Dimples Fields. And then Patti LaBelle was like, nah, I need them girls to sing background for me. You know,
so now they part of her.
You know, so you go from Margot Thunder and Intrigue to Ouch to 9.9. And then you get your single and you have one video and you can go to a record store and see the cutout bin and see the single of the video. But they have so much more of an impact on Boston than just that one album. And that's always the story of Black Boston. You know, you are a legend, but outside everywhere else, it's like, I remember you.
Yeah.
I remember them. You know, Planet Patrol were massive. And Tommy Boy doesn't exist without Boston. Tommy Boy's entire roster and the in-house producers were Boston.
RSO.
Well, that was later.
But see, there's clearly a chance for us to be back because, and we'll probably have to do hopefully if you have time, we can do it to close out Black History since we're opening up with this. But I do feel like there's so much more for us to talk about. And I love that the audience has been engaged this whole time and they ain't even commenting so much. They are just listening because that number hasn't moved. So I'm really excited that you're here, but just in the interest of time, Dart, again, we definitely have to have you back because this conversation can obviously continue to go on and on and on. Because before you came here, we were literally just kind of reminiscing ourselves about our different experiences. And I think that shapes a lot of Black culture, especially a lot of the Black leaders that are here, getting really kind of digging into their experience and hearing more history. With that said, we do got to step up out of here because Bobby Steels is up next and we don't want to encroach on his show. But Dart, where can we find you? Where can we continue to follow you? What do you have going on? What are you doing next? Tell us everything because I'm going to have everybody go to Dart's page.
I left Twitter, went to Blue Sky. So I'm on Blue Sky. You can find me on Instagram, Dart_Adams. I should be writing for
Blue Sky Threads.
Blue Sky is
a journalism
platform. It's a journalism platform. Threads, I'm not on Threads. So where I write now, I'm currently writing a piece for the Emancipator about the 1964 Freedom Schools. The anniversary is February 26, 1964. So I'm doing a piece about the Freedom Schools and how if you go back and look for them now, you can't really find the sites and all this other stuff. So I'm doing that piece right now for the Emancipator. In negotiations of trying to write something for Boston Magazine. I still write for Boston Magazine, Boston Globe Magazine, and Boston Globe. So, but basically, I'm going to be doing some Black History pieces for the Emancipator all along this month.
And you were contributed on the last year for the 50th year of hip hop. You do have you did some pieces and some
for NPR.
Yes,
I did the 40th anniversary hip hop piece for NPR, and I said I wanted to do another piece for the 50th anniversary. So they made it part of their all rap is all local, like all rap scenes are local. And I wrote another piece about Boston's rap scene. I will continue to do that.
We'll find those and we'll post them for you guys in the comment section and also include them in our next newsletter publication that should be coming out soon. So make sure that you guys keep it locked right here. Again, go follow Dart. What's you on Instagram?
Dart_Adams.
Dart_Adams. Go follow him. Jump in his DMs.
Also, dartadams.com if you really want to
Yes,
see
that's
everything.
what we need to know. Everything. If you want to go, dartadams.com. We're going to put it in the comment section.
Mathematics, athletics, for all the gear that we've done with the Boston Legends
And
collection.
make sure that you get some of it so you can rock it and feel prideful.
And we're gonna have the shorts. We're gonna have the South End shorts coming up because we have Dorchester.
Boston on the front? I want
No, we have the Dorchester shorts, which are black. We have the Roxbury shorts, which are orange and black, and the South End shorts, which are gonna come out this summer or the spring or summer, I believe. They're green and white.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have them all. You can send us a care package if you want to. Anyways, people, we got to slide on over to the side. Spark FM Online, #1 for urban and Caribbean music here on Spark FM. Bobby Steels is up next from 11 to 1 on the Bobby Steels Show. Make sure you tune in. I believe he might have an interview today again, so make sure you guys keep it locked right here. Spark FM, more news, more entertainment, more everything coming up next. Bye.
Saucy and Friends in the morning with Miss Hot Sauce, Miss Tony, and Rockstone Triz.
You are enjoying the miracle of radio.
Radio. New England's #1 urban Caribbean music.
Radio.
Spark FM.